A tip came in last month, May 10th, 2026, to the search group in Mexico. They commenced a search. I guess it took them 6 days to get a search group together. They did the search, negative results. A second anonymous tip came in on June 10th, which is this past Wednesday. They went out on that same day and searched with negative results. They have a third search set for next week, undetermined date.
For the volunteers with Buscando Corazones, anonymous tips are common, often leading them to remote parts of Mexico as they search for missing people.
We usually get anonymous calls almost every day.
Were you familiar with Nancy Guthrie when you did get that tip?
In reality, no, I didn't know. Once they told me, I looked her up. That's all I know. Here in Mexico, we search for all those who are missing the same way.
Ramona Guadalupe Ayala Ortiz, the leader of the collective, says a caller last month told her Nancy Guthrie's remains are buried close to the Mariposa port of entry in Nogales, just across the border. After receiving the tip on a possible gravesite, volunteers alongside Mexican authorities conducted a search on May 16th and returned again on Wednesday.
They only told me to search near the streams, under a velvet tree. That's all. So we, as searchers, have learned the techniques for finding a clandestine grave.
Ramona says searchers are looking for any signs the ground may have been altered.
When they talk about these clandestine graves, how sensitive is this recovery process? I remember you with Dr. Murray Marks speaking about sifters, using sifting once you do discover a clandestine grave where a person has been buried for an extended period of time. How extensive is this type of operation, and how sensitive and important is it to collect this stuff properly, Ed?
Well, first you got to document it properly. You just don't, break out the shovel and start digging. And first you have to thoroughly document it, map it out, 3D laser scan it, grid it, set up clean workstations with tents and clean tarps on the ground, and various clean 5-gallon buckets, clean shovels, clean trowels, clean dustpans, clean brushes, the whole 9 yards. And 3D laser scan everything first, then start, sign somebody. And they got to be wearing PPE, because I don't see that here other than the gloves. So you need to be wearing Tyvek and so forth. And then you start digging up one of the grids and bringing the soil over to the sifting station. And the sifting station has a series of screens at different sizes, and you pour the dirt in at the top and you sift. And based on the size of the objects in the soil, it will fall into one of the multiple screens that are present, and then it captured. Then you look at it and you document it, and you see if there's any investigative materials there, bones, teeth, jewelry, identification things, organs, hair, whatever the case may be. And it's a painstaking process. It is an anthropological dig, and it's not something that should be attempted by the untrained.
Dave, I want to go to you here. You've been on many searches where you talk about law enforcement's asking you guys to dig, right? And searching for very, very old cases where people have gone missing or murdered. But when your folks are being called by law enforcement, and then all of a sudden you now identify something that looks like a bone, just tell the audience what happens with you guys as pros while you got law enforcement there, Dave.
Like Ed said, you got to have everything that's pristine. You can't have any cross-contamination. But first you have to get to that area. And I think that's where we come in at, as far as honing down an area. So we have the drones, of course, the M3M that actually detects whether a piece of ground has been disturbed or not. So once we would use that, and if it looks like a piece of ground has been disturbed, then at that point in time, then we could send in just a couple of people, or the detective team, one or two. So that way, when you go into this, and if it does happen to be your zone, then at this point in time, your crime scene is still pristine, because you're sending law enforcement in. They're making their determination. If they need further evaluation, then we can probe it. Then we can dig a little bit as far as until we hit something. And then once we hit something, then we sit there and turn it over to
Right.
to the professionals, unless they want us to continue on assisting with them.
There's many ways when we're searching, what we're looking for, signs of a clandestine grave. Recently disturbed soil, the size and shape of the disturbed soil. We could use thermal imaging, and the drone has thermal imaging, plus there are handheld thermal imagers. And what I like to do is we go there after the sun has been out all day beating on these areas of the disturbed soil, because what happens when you take a shovel and dig out the soil and you put it to the side, place a body in, and then put the soil back, you disturb the mineral makeup of the soil. In addition, the body is decomping and giving off heat. So what ends up happening is the clandestine burial site will have a different heat signature after the sun sets than the undisturbed soil, okay? And then that would be a clear sign of a potential clandestine grave. That said, we can also use ground penetrating radar. Basically, it's a big metal sled with a radar device on it that shoots radar waves, almost sonar. It's closer to being sonar than radar, but anyhow, it goes down into the ground and maps on the ground anomalies.
Right.
And that could help us there too. And then obviously cadaver dogs. Okay.
Right.
If you had a site that you suspect is a clandestine grave, you run a cadaver dog over that area.
We're not aware of how much technology this search group has. I really don't know a lot about these ladies, but I know that they're dedicated and they've found many sets of remains. These are anonymous tips. So as it pertains to Nancy Guthrie, who's on the screen here, when you have these anonymous tips and someone's calling it in, you can't just ignore it. And the FBI and Pima County sheriffs have embedded a task force. So I think Sergeant Cross said there was 4 or 5 detectives and a group of FBI agents. Is there technology on these drones or in the software that Shane gives you guys access to locate that can locate anomalies in the ground to see if there was perhaps a grave site there, Dave?
Well, again, you have a thermal, which then you run you do your flight. What Gene has told us, Gene Robinson, is the best time to fly this is at about 4 a.m. That way you're kind of getting all that heat kind of dispersed before the new day starts. So anywhere from about 4 to about 6:30, 7 o'clock before the sun starts to come out again is your fly time, to where everything else is kind of cooled off. You know, we use colors through locate. Well, what Gene and Shane has put together up with this also is using a thermal cam, M3NM, for the disturbances, and then we could use the T for the thermal. From what I understand, you don't even look at a picture. So if I'm not mistaken, there's 330,000 pixels in each one of these thermal images. Each one of them, each pixel has its own heat. So let's say if you keep getting 30s, 40s, 50s, and all of a sudden you spike up to 90 is where you want to go, because that's closest to the body temperature. And usually 9 times out of 10, that's where your body's going to be. So as far as like how long that lasts, I'm not too sure, because you have, how deep is it? The conditions around it. There's a lot of factors, if there's clay or if it's sandy soil. So there's a lot of different factors in different parts of the United States that you can have to throw into the equation.
Also, the ambient temperature in the environment, especially in the desert areas. At night, at daytime it gets really hot, and then at nighttime the temperatures drop really low as well. So you have these dramatic temperature swings, and that can affect how a body decomps as well. The higher the temperatures, the better the bacteria growth is, the more decomp that's going to occur. The lower the temperature, the lower temperatures tend to retard the bacteria is needed to decomp a body. And so the heat signature on a lower temperature body is not going to be the same as the heat signature on a body that's well heated. It's just ridiculous, because the amount of assets and the equipment that you bring is phenomenal. That said, in law enforcement, people say it's the first 48 hours are the critical hours. I kind of kind of cut that down by half. I think it's the first 24 hours.
I
But
agree.
if you can get those assets in there on the ground in the first 24 hours, you got to throw the kitchen sink at a problem like this immediately. You can't let this like crescendo. You can't let this build up. You got to deal with it right away. You got to get all your ducks in a row and throw as many people at the problem as you can. Train people, mind you, and it's got to be organized, and it can't be willy-nilly. And for him to not allow assets like yourselves in to assist is ridiculous. It's just unprofessional.
You know the drill. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and this guy, my partner in crime, Ed Wallace. When we go live or upload another video,